Hola, hola, ¿qué tal? Buenos días. Hello and welcome once again to Lima, Peru, to my home in this beautiful city, capital of this country known as, well, the home of the Incas, but also known currently as home of, well, the best cuisine in the Americas. Well, I am just a proud Peruvian, well, loving, of course, to mention how excited I am about Peruvian food. But indeed, well, we have one of the best cuisines, of course, in the world. That is out of discussion. So, well, today we'll be talking about Peru, and I'll be taking you again to Puno, which is one of these very important destinations we have in Peru. Probably not really like so internationalized in terms of publicity and understanding of the value of this part of the country to be discovered and visited by international travelers. Even though, like in the last decades, Peru has put more efforts in promoting sites within the country that are not associated directly with Machu Picchu or the city of Cusco, which, well, no need of further introduction about those sites. Well, this series is intended to also to give a extra kick or to many different destinations in the country. And this is part of a series that has taken me to be fully created and also presented to you really weeks. And we are like, let's say, in the, I'm trying to make a fast counting. Um, 15th, more or less, part of this series. Well, we've been really doing a lot, but I have this divided the series in different chapters. No, so and we have already covered the chapter dedicated to Cusco. We have Lima, Ica, Arequipa, the north coast of Peru, and each one of these chapters have been subdivided again in, well, different things, like we've been talking about geography, pre-Hispanic history, colonial history, famous touristic destinations. So, well, all of the information is in my Patreon page. So, well, if you wish to support also this project and become my sponsor, please consider to subscribe to my Patreon, which also the link to join my Patreon is here on the chat as well as in the description of this event. And when it becomes a video, you will be able to access also to that link again. Hola, Natalie. I just saw your message. Hola, amiga. ¿Qué tal? Thank you for being here today. Means a lot to me. Your presence, as always. Lots of love. And so, well, we now continue with part two. Yesterday, we started with the first part dedicated to Puno, where we talk about the geography of the South Andes of Peru, and especially with big emphasis in the high plateau of the South Andes of Peru and Titicaca Lake as well. And for today, we have pre-Hispanic history, archaeology of the region of Puno. I have just a little bit to share with you before we officially start. And also, and those that are well, new to my events, well, I stream almost every day. I try to make room every day for sharing a bit about Peru. Well, you know, already we have a series I'm sharing now. I hope you are able to see my screen there. So my well, next events. So next one is going to be on Monday. We continue with Puno. And also, if you go to Patreon, hola Marilyn, hello, thanks for being here. Well, my friends are also joining here on the chat. So on Patreon, we have in this moment, well, a pool to help me decide which ones will be the next events coming after we finish with this series of Puno. And Puno chapter is the actually is almost at the end of the series, because after Puno, we go to Iquitos and to the jungle, the Amazon of Peru. And after that, well, I'll be bringing new topics, new things. So, well, and that's about the Patreon. So don't miss joining Patreon. And also, there is an option to join for free if you prefer still not yet decide on supporting, but you can also see the updates and participate on the polls. Very good. So now let's go um, to the slide. This slide is well about the whole chapter dedicated to Puno, and there's so much more coming also. But as I said before, in today's occasion, we will be learning together about the South Andes of Peru, and with emphasis in its archaeology, in its pre-Hispanic cultural developments, and also how important they are for the people of that region of the country nowadays. Those, let's say, like thousands of years of understanding the soil, the territory, the nature of that part of the country, of the also the time invested in the adaptation of these ancient societies into one of the harshest territories you can live in Peru. So in the part yesterday we talked about, well, how's life above, well, the limit where trees grow. So 4,000 meters above sea level in average of that territory is incredible. So, but this is a society, the people who live in Puno, that has fully been able to adapt to those extreme conditions, and all thanks to, well, the societies that precede way before, and that also are their ancestors talking, our ancestors. So I'd like to take you again to the map, always first to the map. And we have two maps here. One is the political map of Peru, and the other one is the physical map of Peru. So Puno, for those that are new to this series and don't know exactly where is this place, this location I'm talking about, it is located in the South Andes of Peru, a territory that is also characterized with high elevations and also a altiplano territory. Altiplano means high plateau, and comes from the words alti or alto, high, and plano, flat. So the altiplano region has its own characteristics, and even though in the 21st century, like we humans believe, like we can conquer the moon, sometimes we cannot conquer certain places in our own home, planet Earth. So you can see the border of Puno being right next to, well, Bolivia. That's a location where Bolivia is, the border of Puno. Titicaca Lake also present in both maps, of course. So Puno is one of the 24 departments of Peru. And if we go to the other map, to the physical map, in the physical map, we can see, well, again, the elevations, the mountain range, the Andes, that continue also southwards, getting into the territory of Bolivia, Chile, and later on Argentina, and, well, the gigantic, huge Titicaca Lake, the highest navigable lake in the world. So, but by the way, the size of Puno, I was looking about to give you a comparison. How big is Puno? Puno is equivalently big as Portugal, to give you an idea also. Well, and also reminding you before I officially begin with this explanation that you should be seeing images all the time. Sometimes YouTube disconnects the unplugs. I don't know why the images I'm sharing that I see. They are here in my computer. So if you ever find like any problems related with not just like sound buffering or maybe like disappearing of the images, anything that you see that is happening, please first try to refresh your screen. And if it's not working, let me know here in the chat at any time, please. Sometimes I can do things to help. Very good. So let's start with this trip back in time. We are like into a time machine that will take us into the origins of the existence of humans in this territory, in this part of the Andes, and also, well, the surprises that this territory can give us, give to the also archaeology, the investigations also of, well, of life for our ancient, let's say, ancestors. No? And Puno is rewriting also lots of things related with the history of Peru before the conquest. And well, let's start. Oh, gracias, Marlene. Thank you for confirming everything is good out here in the chat. So the first thing I would like to mention is about, of course, the earliest first period when humans arrived into the high plateau. And it's estimated that about, well, let's say 8,000 years ago already, the hunters gatherers were in that location, in that high territory. So some investigations also place or the arrival of humans into that territory about 10,000 years ago, so 8,000 years before Christ. But well, in this period I already mentioned, 8,000 years ago, well, we have already hunters dedicated to catch their prey, which were vicuñas, a beautiful cameloid, wild cameloid also, Andean cameloid from this territory, and tarucas as well. Tarucas are deers, endemic deers from this part of the world. So these hunters were, of course, trying to catch their prey in these conditions, and they live in caves, and they left also beautiful paintings of their huntings. But what is so special about Puno? Well, a long time ago, actually, there were investigations done in this territory about, well, how was life in this part of the Andes, because from here also comes the use of jerky or charqui, as we call it, or in the local language in Quechua. Charqui is dehydrated meat, and in the Andes we consume charqui from llama, especially. So, well, the archaeologists were able to discover surprising things. First of all, that when we usually talk about these groups that live in the Andes in these ancient times, we call them hunters gatherers. But the specialists are preferring now to use the inverted version of that name, gatherers hunters. Why? Because unlike other parts of the world, in the Andes of Peru, the hunters, they consume more in this period of hunting gather. They consume more, let's say, tubers or say vegetables, in comparison to meat. So their consumption of meat was way lesser than in, well, the other side of the world. Being, for example, in average, just 20% of their consumption meat, animals, animal products, and, well, 80% vegetable products. So which is really fascinating. That's why here, well, the predominance was of vegetables instead of meat. This is in the process of, well, already gathering and hunting parallel. And also another thing is that there were women who participated on the hunting. And around the world, there is let's say, understanding or association of hunting with men and also agriculture with women, which is in fact very, very true. But conditions, the situations that took place in that location, women participated also on hunting. And how we know this? Well, in one archaeological site discovered in Puno, the remains of a woman that was buried with also well, elements associated with hunting, with spears, with the heads of the spear stone points, basically. She was buried with all of these elements and associating her also with the hunting. And also very close to her, bones of vicuñas were discovered. So, well, this is definitely surprising, and also finding that women had such important presence in the obtainance of meat also back in these ancient times. And also something I was thinking about when I was reading this paper is that until these days also the Andes is a territory where we are not vegetarian in the Andes, but in the Andes there is always more consumption of vegetables, or could be corn, could be potatoes, could be legumes, in comparison to meat. And this tradition continues until these days. So, uh, is there any problem with the internet? Or I hope that everything is okay, Marilyn. Maybe if you try to refresh and let me know if it continues this problem, please. Um, Over here. So we have also other important elements associated with the first societies that existed around the Titicaca Lake, these first groups, human groups that took this part of the Peruvian territory as a home. And I said before, this is one of the harshest, more complicated territories to grow anything. So with these high elevations, it's almost impossible to grow most of the European products that the Spaniards later introduced here in Peru. No? So the Spaniards and who later went to the Andes, they had to adapt to the products that the locals could supply them with. And of course, that one of those very important products was a potato, and actually many forms of potatoes. And the most recent investigations mentioned that, well, potato was born around the Titicaca Lake. Potato was domesticated. The potatoes, the modern potatoes, the common potatoes, and all the different variations of the potatoes that come from that original one domesticated. They come from the north part of Titicaca Lake. So, well, how this happened. And I wanted to give you also an idea of the appearance of the first potatoes that existed in this territory. And in this picture, you can see different kinds of potatoes. And on the left-hand side, you can see the papas silvestres. Silvestre means wild. So those are the wild potatoes, which are the same size almost of a coin. So they are very tiny tubers. So how come the ancient men and women of this part of the country noticed this little root and started to eat it? So the potatoes in the wild, these wild potatoes, they are not really tasty. I haven't tried one, but the specialists describe the flavor of the wild potatoes as extremely bitter, and also naturally not so good for you, for humans. No? So how these people ended up cultivating the potatoes, selecting them, and then cultivated them. Well, this process of domestication of the potatoes started about, well, 6,000 years before Christ, 8,000 years ago, until, well, more or less the 4,500 years ago. No? And well, these potatoes somehow were selected initially in this intention of probably trying things. So these people were trying to survive in that environment. So they started to try some of them, and probably they left them outside to dry. Okay, we don't know how they ended up doing this, but once the potatoes are dehydrated, completely dehydrated, there are some type of alkaloids, glycoalkaloids, that are inside these potatoes, that diminish or disappear, and later after that process you can eat them. So and that's how these people notice that, well, those tubers could be turned into something edible. And well, consequence of that, they selected some of those potatoes, and they planted them, and little by little started the process of domestication. Okay, so you can see also two other groups of potatoes in the picture. We have the Andean potatoes, which in size they are not extremely big if you compare them to the wild ones. And Andean potatoes come in different colors, different sizes, different flavors. They are so pretty looking, and they are never the same in appearance. Something that, for example, if we go to a supermarket, all the potatoes look the same, right? And they are all looking like, well, the way we think a potato should look. But all of those potatoes also are consequence of modifications that continue, and also, well, treatments and pesticides and all of that. And sadly, well, our native potatoes that are very small, that are so pretty, they are not pretty much like required. They don't meet the standards on supermarkets, but they are the best. They have higher quality. So, well, just wanted to give you an idea of, well, the origin of these potatoes, and also, well, how proud we are also of them. Very good. By the way, the Solanum breviaule, which is the scientific name of this original potato, is the mother of all the potatoes that exist in the world. There's no other. This is the origin potato. It's just one, and it's from the north coast of the Titicaca Lake in Peruvian territory. And well, also in these ancient times, and these initial, let's say, inhabitants of the area around the Titicaca Lake, they domesticated more products too, that are less famous than the potato. Another one that is also famous, maybe not exactly that famous, but now received with wide open arms by people who are in the training world, and or in the health, a more healthy, let's say, diet. They are trying to replace rice for something different. You have the quinoa, which is, that's actually the way how quinoa looks like on the top right hand side. Well, the quinoa is a sort of like a grain. It's like a grain. It's very tasty. And another product which is not known outside the country is the tarwi. Tarwi is a legume, and it comes from a flower that is so beautiful. Like when you see it in the fields around the Titicaca Lake, I think it's really the most beautiful flower we have in that location. That's the flower of tarwi, which is this legume bean that you see in the bottom part. Mm? So well, another thing fantastic about this part of the country is related with well the understanding of in which point in our history gold was started to be used as let's say to show status or was associated with status. And for a long time it was believed that the use of golden like objects like crowns or nose rings, earrings, and necklaces was like side by side with the development of advanced societies, societies that were complex societies. But in Puno, well, that theory was debunked, because it was discovered in Puno in a location that is more like related with still a level of gatherers and hunters, a location that could be associated with more or less 5,000 years ago. The presence also this design is associated with the presence of the first necklace ever discovered in the country, ever made also of gold. So the oldest necklace of gold is associated with this part of the country, and until future investigations, well, we know we are home of the first ever golden necklace of the Americas. Okay, so how? How this golden necklace was made? Well, the theory says that probably this golden, let's say, pieces, beads that you see there, come from nuggets of gold, gold nuggets. And Puno is also a mining region. Nowadays, it still is a mining region. There are gold mines there, silver mines there. So somehow, these ancient people of Puno were able to find gold nuggets. And of course, the nuggets, they are like sometimes they are like this, no? So you need to hammer them. And what they did probably was hammering them. And gold, I never really been able to touch a 24 karat golden object, but I know that 24 karat gold, which is the quality of this gold, is quite soft and malleable. So after hammering it for long time, they were able to flatten it enough, and later on they turn it into like sort of like a cone, and that's how they made the bean. Also, it's amazing that this bean also was discovered very close to a jaw. And they were dated, well, the jaw and also the golden objects and the strings associated to it. So that's how we know the time when probably it was made and used. And also we know that it was a necklace because it was below this jaw, this section, this segment of the head. So, well, this is also fabulous to know. And well, now we know that gold was not just associated with the development of societies or the societies that were more complex. Gold was important even in this more basic state of development in pre-Hispanic Peru. And now, well, also talking about the adaptation into this terrain, into this territory of high radiation, of extreme cold nights. Sorry, I'll take a little bit of water. So, this location also offers indeed the, let's say, lands or soils that are fertile. But the people of the communities in the Andes, they are always fighting the extreme temperatures. And well, one of the biggest fears the people in the Andes have is the frost. So the ancient societies had time enough to adapt to these conditions and develop also technologies and techniques that help them to keep their crops that were so valuable, and also remember that most of their diet was based on those crops instead of animal protein. So they understood from observation, from also experimentation, they understood that crops were more eager to be destroyed if they were far away from bodies of water. Mm. So, how? Well, first of all, they understood something very basic. When there was a rainy season and it was too abundant, which is not very common in the Andes, in this location, the roots of these plants were rotten by the humidity, the extreme humidity. Also, they needed to elevate the crops below the levels of the water. Okay, so in zones that were had a tendency during the rainy season of floating, they understood that the crops should be higher than the level of the water. And they started to channel the zones right next to these crops to permit the natural passing of water when these phenomena happen. But water is always important, so you don't want them to be completely away from water. For example, what about the moments in the year when there were not rains and they were really desperate needing water? So they channel water from other locations, bringing the water also near the crops. But they couldn't just flood all of the crops. So they channel the water in between the crops. So they try in this way to control the flow of water, the intake of liquid by the plants. And another thing important is how the water creates microclimates also. In these conditions, well, actually, the bodies of water are the biggest regulators of the climate in planet Earth. At daytime, these channels of water were like heat up by the sun, by the radiation also of the sun. And at nighttime, well, this water release the heat and keeping a very comfortable, let's say, temperature for the plants. And of course, these varieties of plants are resistant naturally to the temperatures and to the cold and to the hot, but still it was important to prevent them of dying. So this technique is known as waru waru and it still exists in the Andes, known also as camellones. It is actively used technology. And there's nothing modem that can compare to a waru, for example. Um, so we have also other techniques of, say, of adaptation in the high plateau, like for example the cochas. And cocha it means well, could be water, well, could be lagoon. Also, we have, well, a word used in Quechua to name the ocean, which is Mother Cocha, uh, the big Cocha, Cochamama. So basically, it is the understanding of the water of the sea being also our mother. So the pre-Hispanic societies consider sacred the bodies of water, but some of them were manipulated by these people in their benefit, creating those artificial lagoons, for example, which in Puno are known as cochas too. And well, the idea was bringing the water to a central zone and growing plants around. and creating also in the making of this bottom like gotcha section, like a pool, let's say, or pond, and then different elevations of crops on top, microclimates. Mhm. And of course, the always important terraces. Terraces which have a history of thousands of years in Peru. The most famous ones are the ones most people get to see in Cusco, in Machu Picchu, for example. But here in the South Andes, in Puno, of course, there are many ancient evidences of them. So these terraces, the ones, for example, you see in the picture, are from the more like a warmer part of Puno, the north part of Puno in Sandia. And well, those terraces are so interesting. This is an archaeological site, by the way. Like, it's not that nowadays it was designed and built. No, this is an ancient archaeological site, and the name of the site is Cuyo Cuyo. By the way, Cuyo Cuyo comes from the translation, let's say from Quechua, to like earthquake, or movements caused by the earthquake. So it seems that this location was associated with tremblors earthquakes that were very important. And this site, the archaeological site of Cuyo Cuyo, which still is active, um, well, it has the size. I just put it in a more like internationally understanding, let's say, measure: 6,555 hectares, or 16,000 acres, more or less, of size. It gives us an idea of the importance of terraces for the pre-Hispanic people, to sort of like be able to expand the possibilities of agricultural fields. Because if they didn't create terraces like the ones you see over there on the slope, like that land was wasted, useless. Mm? So they created and added like thousands and thousands of hectares of land in this form, in an artificial form, to the communities that existed in those days. Mm. And for example, just in that location, well, there is a huge variety of products that are planted. I also put the number up there: 125 varieties of potatoes, 31 varieties of oca, which is a sub-variety of potato, oh, 29 varieties of oyuco, a sub-variety of potato, 22 varieties of corn, and 22 varieties of fava beans, just in this location. So it is really amazing. These sites were places of experimentation. So we continue with the archaeological developments, and now you know already how well these ancient societies were able to exist in such extreme locations. And let's continue with Pukara. Culture Pukara is known as the first great civilization of the highlands. And well, our Andes also have seen like lots of important cultures, like the Wari, for example, the Incas. But Pukara, in a way, sort of like a grandfather to the Incas. Their technology, their pyramids also. They built pyramids in this territory made of stone. The use of ceramics that also like look like keros, or the ceremonial cups used by the Incas, also show that artistically the Pucaras had an influence in later societies. So other thing interesting about Pucara is that they are sort of like a nexus or a link between two great societies of ancient South America. I cannot say Peru because one of them is not considered Peruvian society, but it had a very important influence here. So the first one is Chavin. And Chavin culture, it was a society that worshiped creatures, gods that recall in appearance pumas, condors, and snakes. And you can see that in the art of Pukara, there are representations that also like have the appearance of the cat, for example, or the feline features that you see in Chavin culture. And Chavin culture is very, very distant to this part of the country. Chavin is located in pretty much the North Andes of Peru, central North Andes of Peru. So it was very, very far away. No? So how this society was impregnated with the religion of a culture so distant? Well, in the pre-Hispanic times, the societies that were theocratical also, they not necessarily became empires, but sometimes you see their style influencing far, far away locations, very, very distant locations. Why? Because the ancient people of Peru, they trade a lot, or they depended on the products that were coming from distant locations. They couldn't survive just from the local products. It was impossible, pretty much, especially these societies from the high plateau. No? So they acquire products from other locations, and in this trading process, they got information, knowledge of things that were happening far away. And also, another thing that was very important for the people of the Andes was, well, uh, sort of like receiving information about the climate, about the future, no? But not their future, their personal future, more about, well, the future of, for example, like a rain, if in the future there's going to be rain, if the climate is going to be stable or no. So these societies rely on specialists who could tell them when will be raining, and if it's raining and this is a normal, when it's going to happen. So these specialists were priests because their job was also to control the climate situation. Also, well, societies like Pucará and many, many other here depended on specialists. And those specialists were usually in religious centers that were very far away. So it is very common that these people travel as pilgrims to centers, to religious centers, where they got the information they needed. They intake and also hallucinogenic plants as part of the ceremony. San Pedro cactus, for example, ayahuasca. It really depends on where they were. And when they return from that experience, and with the information required or solicited to their towns, they spread the news about their experiences. They spread the news. They pass the voice about, like they saw this god that is like a puma, and it's so powerful, and that's how little by little the locals were evangelized in a way with those beliefs from the exterior. So that's how, well, many societies had influence in societies that were far, far, far away without conquering them. And how those societies come to an end, or how that religion comes to an end, usually when the leaders of that cult are not able to hold their word, in terms of, like, they are supposed to be the ones who are mediators with the god, and if there is a phenomena that is too great and they cannot stop, well, their name is pretty much like stain, is ruined, their good name, no, as the chosen ones. So that's the moment usually when other societies emerge with more powerful gods, or let's say societies that were not as affected as those other groups. And well, that's why people turn their eyes into those other places, and they abandon the cult of others. Okay, so this is a little bit of how, well, this society became also influenced by a culture that was so distant to them. And well, the culture Pucará, which was born specialists believe, in the north part of Titicaca Lake, sort of like on the way to Cusco almost, no? Pucará had very, very important temples and pyramids made of stone, and their territory, their zone of, let's say, the influence of Pucará was pretty much all the high plateau area. Probably including territories that nowadays belong to Bolivia, because as I said yesterday, Bolivia and Peru, we are really like twin sisters, at least in the high plateau region, that were separated at birth. No? We have lots in common. So, more of Pucará, and here some of the most important symbols of the art of Pucará, of the let's say in the design, and in the especially petroglyphs and say stonework, stelas. The art of Pucará, as I said before, is influenced by Chavin. It has symbols like, for example, these chacanas on the left-hand side. You can see these Andean crosses represented also, lots of geometry that we don't really understand what they were trying to express in those, but the chacanas continue existing until the times of the Incas, and even later. They still are considered a mystical symbol. We have also in the center one, that's the representation of a mythological creature that has part of the body of this creature is like a animal, is actually identified as a fish, the suche, and also the head looks like a puma. And in the Andes, also pumas are very important. In this region, we have pumas, and we have also Andean cats, which are very different, but they are felines also. And you can see that this creature is looking towards a circle. So that circle, some specialists explain as a gocha. So these agricultural spaces where there's water in the interior, water inside, and they are for agricultural purposes. So well, that's one of the explanations. And then in the other extreme, on the right-hand side, we have the decapitator, which is a representation very common for the Pukara society. This decapitator always has, of course, a human head in the hand, and is associated also with well, the idea of fertility. So, well, human sacrifices were also important in the pre-Hispanic times, and they guarantee fertility too. And well, the other society, because Pucará is, as I said before, an in-between stage of development between Chavin, which is a society from Peru, and Tiahuanaco. And Tiahuanaco is a Bolivian culture. Well, the center of Tiahuanaco is in an archaeological site named also homonymously Tiahuanaco in Bolivia. That site you can visit also if you are doing a trip in Puno and you want to go to Bolivia, cross to Bolivia. So before you go to the city of La Paz, you can visit Tiahuanaco. Tiahuanaco, well, is a site that is incredible. The first time I saw it many years ago, I was impressed. My surprise was the monolithic architecture there in a zone that, well, there are no stones around. So most of those stones were taken from distant locations and were carved so perfectly to create temples and representations of face figures or faces. The gate of the sun also, which is what you see there on the right hand side. So the code of the society of Tiahuanaco was very, very complex. The religion they had. Tiahuanaco had a big influence in the Peruvian territory, especially in the territories that now belong to the South Andes of Peru and Chile, the north of Chile also. So not just Bolivia, also Peru and Chile have influence of this society. And well, they worship a deity that has the appearance of having staffs in the hands, which is actually the same deity you see on the top of this stone gate, or the gate of the sun. So the connections between Tiahuanaco and Peru go also far away, not just related with the moment when Tiahuanaco was a big society state with religious influence in different parts of the Peruvian territory. They were not an empire, by the way. This is the same case also of religious influence that we've seen in Chavin. Mm. Eh, Oh, no problem, Natalie. No problem. Have a good day. Oh, you can see it later. Um, bye bye, amiga. So, the influence of this society continues even later during the Inca times. Mhm. And why? Some theories mention that the Incas actually have an origin in Tiahuanaco, in the high plateau, and in the Tiahuanaco society. Experts mention that the language the noble Inca spoke was not Quechua. How is that possible? Well, Quechua or Runasimi was the common language, the language used by everybody to understand each other's. A big state, a big empire in this case, needs one official language for everybody to communicate. So that was the Quechua. Hmm? But upon the arrival of the Spaniards, there were several languages spoken also in different regions, in different parts of the country. Okay, so the language the Inca noble people spoke was not Quechua. They had a different language that was known as the secret language, also a secret language, and that language is known as Pukina. There is a big possibility that Pukina, which actually comes from this part of the Andes, from Puno, was the language that was also used by the Tiahuanacos. Oh. And later on, the Incas, when they travel in direction to Cusco, and I will explain how is that possible. Weren't they from Cusco? Well, I'll explain this in detail in a moment. They they brought with them, well, the culture of the Tiahuanaco, the cult also to this deity that looks solar, and the Incas also worship the sun, and more. So we continue, and we have here another important cultural expression of Puno, of the region of Puno. This is the Colla society. The Collas also spread over in not just in Peru, also spread to the north of Chile and also to Bolivia, where a kingdom, a group that was later conquered by the Incas. And one of the expressions of the art of the Colla society was, for example, the chulpas, or these funerary towers. Inside them, they buried their loved ones in fetal embryonic position. So, for example, here we have Siyustani. This is the archaeological site Siyustani, and the Umayo Lagoon, which was considered also very sacred by them. And the Collas also worship a god named Tunupa. And the influence of the Collas also spread over in different directions of the country. And the deity they worship also was a very important deity in that ancient times. Later on, probably, well, the Incas continue worshiping Tunupa because they were very flexible and they were open basically to the cults and local deities they found wherever they went. So Tunupa is also associated with the lightning and the ray and rain also. And that image you see on the left hand side is a picture, of photography taken from the archaeological site or close to the archaeological site of Ollantaytambo in Cusco. And that is a natural rock formation that is known as Tunupa as well. So that's in Cusco, and Ollantaytambo also is associated with the Inca culture, but you can see also that this deity was present also in the Inca times. So the Colla society was, as you know already, conquered by the Incas. By the way, the translation of the word Colla, uh, some specialists believe, means wise. Could be wise man, wise person. So the empire of the Incas, when it was in its biggest extension, was divided in four parts. Also, the Tawantinsuyo, the way it was named, this empire was Tawantinsuyo, had four parts. The north part was known as Chinchaysuyo. Suyo means part, and Chincha, well, is the name of a society, of a culture that existed in that territory or in part of that territory. So it would mean, the translation, the land of the Chincha. Okay. Well, to the east we have the Antisuyo. Antis were the people from the jungle, from the the Amazon, let's say, no, from behind the Andes mountains, or the Andes. So that's why the Incas called them, Andes. That's the way how they were known, and that territory, the Antisuyo, or the land of the Andes. Near the Pacific, we have the Contisuyo, or the land of the Conti or Condor. Also, some people explain that Condor is the origin of the word Conti, which, for example, nowadays would be Arequipa, a part of Arequipa and other southern territories of Peru. So that would be the third part. And all the territory in the south was the Collasuyo, named after the Collas also, of this important kingdom that, well, the Incas conquered. And the center of this, let's say, empire, the place where the four parts united, was Cusco, of course. Okay, so the Incas came in the mid 15th century. Pachacutec also conquered the Collas. And when the Incas probably returned to this territory, because there are interesting investigations done about the origin of the Incas. So there is an ancient origin that determines that there might be connections between the Incas with this ancestral society of Tiahuanaco, and with origins in Titicaca Lake area, and also a possible like movement of people to warmer and lower valleys, and that's how finally they reach into Cusco, and well, they decided to stay in that location. And well, also the languages, no, how we can trace back the origin of certain languages to certain locations in the country. um, and there is an interesting legend, that is the legend of the origin of the Inca society. And the legend mentions that this is origin of the Incas, that the origin, the birthplace of the Incas is at Lake Titicaca. So Lake Titicaca is the birthplace of the Incan royal lineage. And Manco Capac and Mama Ocllo came out of Titicaca Lake, and they were given by order from the father, because Manco Capac and Mama Ocllo were brother sister. Their father, the son, ordered them to found a new town, and Manco Capac was given a staff or a scepter, very, very big, of gold. And the order was that wherever this gold staff sink in the ground, that would be the place where he should found this city that he was commissioned to do. Gracias, Marilyn. No worries. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. So, well, that's how the Incas ended up in Cusco. That is the story. That is the legend. And well, we are now coming officially to the end, because the next event is going to be about colonial Puno, about the history of Puno since the arrival of the conquistadors, the also importance of Puno in the mining industry, also in the colonial times, and more. So thank you so much again, amigos and amigas, for your participation, for being with me almost every day. Next week, we will continue with this series. And well, hopefully, you will be able to accompany me. So before we continue, just a little bit of information related with what's coming. So don't forget also to choose your preferred topic for after we finish this series also. And if you want to make sure of not missing the upcoming events, there you have also my YouTube. If you want to also share with friends, and you want to tell them how is the name of my YouTube channel, is Peru History Adventures with Vanessa Vasquez. So in the section of streaming live or live streams, you can see also my agenda for upcoming events. Okay, so thank you very much. And don't forget also to keep following my colleagues in also other platforms. Here in the description of this event or video, depending on how you see it, you're going to find 4 links to different Facebook groups where my colleagues are doing live events almost daily. At least daily, you're going to find one event. There could be also many more, especially now that the Christmas season is coming. So make sure of going, of let's say following my colleagues, and supporting if you can. Also, you can support this project becoming a Patreon. So the information to become a Patreon and also to support with a small donation every month is here on the pin up there on the chat, or also in the description of this event. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, and see you soon in our next event next week. Have a lovely weekend. Big, big hug to you all. Kisses from Lima, from Peru. Gracias. Chao, nos vemos. Hasta pronto.